What's up, Taiwan? I'm Rik Glauert with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. We're seeing the first images of hostages and prisoners returning home after being freed on day one of the Hamas-Israel truce. 13 Israelis, 10 Thai nationals and 1 Filipino were among the hostages released. 39 Palestinian women and children were freed from Israeli prisons. Israel says it has received a list of the second group of hostages to be released today. Under the agreement, a total of 50 Israeli hostages and 150 Palestinian prisoners will be swapped over 4 days. Meanwhile, much-needed aid has also begun arriving in Gaza, which is suffering from a humanitarian crisis after 7 weeks of war. While the 3 leading political parties battle for positions in Taiwan's government, some smaller parties are also announcing their legislative nominees. Tiffany Wong takes a look at Taiwan's growing third-party movement.
Growing a democracy. That's the goal of these smaller political parties now putting candidates forward for Taiwan's legislative elections. They say they want to break the deadlock the 2 major parties, the ruling Democratic Progressive Party and the Kuomintang, have had on Taiwan's politics since the country became a democracy nearly 30 years ago.
把人民放在前面，把国家的利益放在前面，把两岸的和平放在前面，把政党的斗争摆下来。
台湾需要有一个更进一步的站稳台湾的立场，又能够改革的这个新的力量。
Although a presidential campaign may be an overreach for most of these so-called third parties, they have their eyes set on winning seats in the legislature based on proportional representation. Of 113 legislative seats, 34 are reserved for distribution among political parties based on support from Taiwanese voters. Any party that receives at least 5% of the vote is guaranteed 2 members in the legislature. And while that may not seem like much, analysts say it could impact major policy decisions.
It gives small parties, usually not many, but somewhere between 2 to 5 seats in the legislative Yuan. And those 2 to 5 seats might seem small, but it's very meaningful that they have a voice in the legislative Yuan. And they can even sometimes make or break certain issues or certain votes.
And these small voices can turn into bigger ones as more and more voters lose attachment to the established parties. In the last legislative elections in 2020, these smaller parties evenly split the proportional vote with the DPP and the KMT. And in the upcoming presidential elections, a third-party candidate is proving a strong challenger, an inspiration for many of these smaller parties, now working to grow their support, 1 legislative seat at a time. Patrick Chen and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
A Taiwanese businessman has appeared in court after being charged with spying for China. Feng Xiang and his wife are accused of being recruited by Beijing to monitor Taiwan independence activists. Prosecutors say they tried to recruit supporters of former President Chen Shui-bian, gang members, and a staff member of the Mongolian and Tibetan Cultural Center to work for China. Fang denies the allegations, saying in court that he remembers nothing. Taiwan's government watchdog has censured the defense ministry over a military plane crash last year. An E-2K early warning aircraft had a rough landing at Pingdong Air Force Base last November. An investigation found the pilots had failed to properly deploy the landing gear. It would have cost more than $60 million to repair, so the military decommissioned the plane. The agency has instructed the Defense Ministry to punish the pilots and to improve education and training programs. A proposed trash incinerator in Taiwan's Changhua County has put developers at loggerheads with the local community, and the latest hopes of a compromise have broken down. A battle cry before negotiations. After months of protesting a proposed trash incinerator in their neighborhood, these residents of Taiwan's Changhua County were invited to discuss the plans with developers. But the talks, arranged by Taiwan's economy ministry, quickly broke down.
我们不对题，而且他只是在跟我们大家再讲一次金顶焚化炉为什么要开发。我们不是要讲听你这个嘛，甚至他这个会议还限制，包含民众参与，就每个单位3个人，然后讲话3分钟，然后我们还不能进去里面直播录影，这样的这是个公共议题，怎么可以这样来限缩？
Construction of the incinerator has been halted for months due to protests by locals. They say the area already has a higher density of incinerators and power plants than the rest of the country, and that the pollution is causing a health crisis.
年轻人已经有那个肺癌的 证照了，有发现了3、4位，这就会代表所有的居民、所有的产业坚决的反对金田焚化炉在这里设立。
But developers have tried to convince residents they have nothing to worry about, saying they have been following government regulations and that with new technology, this will be the lowest emission waste processing plant in Taiwan.
我们做过健康风险评估，累积70年以后，对我们这个附近的居民的一些致癌风险的几率是相对的低。我们可以客观、科学的方法，又符合法治的规定来去处理这件事。
Dialogue on the issue has, for the moment, broken down. But protesters here are determined, describing the battle against development as a fight to the death. They are now calling on the government to do more to protect them, saying their next protest will be in the capital, Taipei. A company in northern Taiwan is facing fines for dumping toxic wastewater into a river. John Van Triest has this report.
The nauseating smell from the river was what tipped off people that something wasn't right. Then people noticed piles of dead fish and crabs on the banks as the water turned a sickly yellow. There was something toxic in the Fuxing River.
所有的那个毛蟹啊、鱼啊，那像福寿鱼，最不怕脏的那种都受不了它。
This small northern Taiwan waterway runs past both farms and factories. But it didn't take officials long to find the culprit. Ironically, a recycling firm. Though the company is in the country's northern Hsinchu County, the river forms the border with neighboring Taoyuan, and officials from both jurisdictions are on the case.
后续呢，新竹县环保局依违反废氢法的第31条跟36条，分别开罚6000元以上300万元以下的罚款。
An additional fine of up to $95,000 could follow for violations of the Water Pollution Control Act. But such fines are fairly routine in Taiwan, and they don't seem to be deterring farm and factory owners. The past few months alone have seen a string of cases, many in the southern industrial city of Kaohsiung. Untreated wastewater with heavy metals ended up in the harbor, and a leather company was caught dumping excess waste too. So while in Hsinchu officials have caught the latest offender, the issue of illegal dumping shows no signs of going away. Joseph Wu and John Van Triest for TaiwanPlus.
UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has made a stark climate warning during a visit to Antarctica. He said intense action must be taken at the upcoming UN COP28 climate summit, where countries will address their commitments to lowering planet warming emissions. It comes as Antarctica ice faces an all-time low, with new figures showing this September it was 1.5 million square meters smaller than average.
What happens in Antarctica does not stay in Antarctica. And what happens thousands of miles away has a direct impact right here in Antarctica. We live in an interconnected world. Fossil fuel pollution is eating our planet and unleashing climate anarchy in Antarctica.
Guterres' warning comes as the world's largest iceberg, 3 times the size of New York City, is on the move from Antarctica for the first time in more than 3 decades. Scientists say the iceberg, named A23A, has most likely shrunk and lost its grip on Antarctica's seafloor after spending over 30 years grounded there. The huge mass measures almost 4,000 square kilometers and weighs nearly 1 trillion metric tons. It's now headed towards the Southern Ocean, aided by wind and currents. For the first time ever, the world's biggest freediving festival is taking place in Taiwan. Sandy Chi brings us this report.
Swimsuits, masks and flippers on, ready to plunge into the ocean. These are freedivers from all around the world here in Xiaoliuqiu, a small island off the coast of the southern city of Kaohsiung. They've all gathered here for one purpose: to attend the world's biggest freediving festival, Deep Week. It's been held before in countries like the Philippines, Thailand and Mexico. This is the first time Deep Week is taking place in Taiwan, with organizers saying it's an ideal spot to hold the event.
Taiwan is probably the easiest location that we have, or one of the easiest locations that we have, and it's because the conditions are so easy.
Water temperature, the stability of the currents, like it's not choppy like Australia is, and the visibility is amazing. It's just like it's crystal clear. Like I'm looking down and I can see someone like 20, 25 meters below me, and it's just like, you just can't see that in most other places.
When Deep Week first started a few years ago, there were only around 35 participants, but that number has grown to over 100 in recent years. This time, around 130 participants traveled to Xiaoliuqiu to meet and learn from some freediving record holders, including the world's greatest living freediver, Alexei Molchanov.
Freediving is a sport which I love to share with people. I love to talk about philosophy of freediving, and for me, it's I would say is one of the best tools to learn how to get calmer, how to get less stressed and less tense.
Other than attending workshops and training sessions, participants get a chance to witness Molchanov in action.
So first, Alexei, seeing his exceptional athleticism, he flew through the Ninja Warrior course, which is like an obstacle course underwater, and that was amazing.
Together for 7 days, these divers spend time together in the water and on land. For first-timers, this experience opens their eyes to a whole new world.
I'm also athlete or freediver, and so I had a lot of questions about how to do equalization and how to push myself to be more better and to push myself and break my personal best.
I've pushed so many PBs. Every day I've actually managed to improve my PB here, going from 20 meters without fins down to 30 meters free immersion yesterday.
It's not just newbies here. Some participants have been to several deep weeks.
This is my 4th deep week now. Each time, the best thing is making friends from all around the world, seeing old friends, new friends, and it keeps the community closer together.
That bond is what motivates these divers to travel around the world and freedive in different countries. Today, Taiwan is home to more than 90,000 registered freedivers and has the second largest number of freediving licenses in the world. With Deep Week being held in Xiaoliuqiu, it's an inspiring opportunity for Taiwan's athletes to learn from the best and dive deeper into the freediving world. Scott Huang and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
All-important coral reefs have been dying due to climate change, but some Taiwanese marine biologists are hopeful they found a way to save them. Joyce Zhang reports.
Hidden in the waters of Taiwan, a coral kingdom that hasn't been able to escape the damaging effects of climate change. Coral reefs support about 1/4 of all marine species at some point in their life cycle, but under the stress of rising sea temperatures, they bleach, losing their vibrant color and eventually dying off. But Taiwanese marine biologists may have found a solution, inspired by a global search for heat-tolerant corals.
那现在国际上也在寻找所谓的超级珊瑚，就是这些珊瑚在未来如果气候变迁、人为冲击下，那珊瑚礁要消失的话。 那这一群珊瑚，可能是最有机会存活下来的。
What they've done was study these heat-tolerant corals and restored dying ones in labs to successfully resist temperatures that are up to 3 to 4 degrees warmer than they were in before. And they've done this with the help of Taiwanese electronics giant Delta, whose technology can meaningfully boost coral care.
我们当初并不知道台达的 LED 灯其实对于养珊瑚其实是有帮助的。工程师特别为范老师开发一个垂直式的高效养殖系统。
And this is a piece of a larger push to save the world's reefs, like in the U.S. state of Texas, where a coral sanctuary has been making samples of healthy species to be replanted.
Because coral reefs are declining all over the globe, when we find ones that are healthy, we want to keep them that way.
With so much riding on these coral reefs, from providing a home for fish to economic factors like bringing in tourism revenue, marine biologists around the world are working to make sure coral can face the looming climate crisis. Joseph Wu and Joyce Sin for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Before we go, check out this footage of the world's first sperm whale sanctuary in the Caribbean island nation of Dominica. I'm Rik Glauert, take care, and we will see you next time.